Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And first of all, I want to say thank you to my colleague from Massachusetts, Mr. McGovern, for those very kind words and for his help on this, because he has been very interested in this since my first appearance before the Rules Committee. And I also want to thank Chairman Conyers, and I want to thank Mr. Poe, and especially our colleague Zoe Lofgren from California, who has helped on this as well, and Senator Alexander in the other body, and Senator Webb, former Marine, who has taken a great interest in this legislation. All of us in this work see things before we're members for very long. We see things that we think would be impossible that somehow work out, and we see the opposite of that. We see some things that appear to be easy or simple that somehow turn into nightmares or serious problems. And while this is something that almost, I think, everyone on both sides of the aisle, when they've heard about it, they've been supportive and helpful, it has been a difficult thing to reverse the technicality here and get this all worked out. But and this legislation has been adequately described by the three prior speakers. But I will say that I also rise in support of H.R. 6397, and certainly this is a tragic situation where a young Marine was killed in action in Iraq 1 month after his marriage to this young woman from Japan. And then, of course, a little bit later, the young woman, Mrs. Hota Ferschke, gave birth to Sergeant Ferschke's child, as has been described. Sergeant Ferschke was then killed in Iraq, as Mr. McGovern mentioned, during combat on August 10th, 2008. Because Sergeant Ferschke's death prevented the couple from consummating their proxy marriage, the Department of Homeland Security does not recognize that the Ferschkes were legally married. And then Mrs. Ferschke gave birth to Michael Ferschke III in Okinawa on January 7th, 2009. She immediately registered her son's birth with the State Department, securing U.S. citizenship. After Sergeant Ferschke's death, Hota Ferschke filed a petition to immigrate to the U.S. In response to Hota Ferschke's petition, the DHS issued a denial of her petition, citing Section 1703 and 101A35 of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Sergeant Ferschke and Hota had intended to raise baby Michael in the U.S., where Michael could grow up with Sergeant Ferschke's family. This legislation would amend current immigration law so that DHS would recognize a proxy marriage between two individuals because of an active duty service member's deployment abroad. And this legislation will straighten out a tragic and sad situation for a woman and her child, and I think everyone sees the merit in this, or at least I hope they do, and I urge all of my colleagues to support this legislation.